Welcome back to Province Wide. I'm Diane Vernile. Many of you hate to have your picture taken. Should you smile? Should you keep your mouth shut? And what about the expression on your face? Waterloo photographer David James has made a career out of capturing people at their photographic best. In fact, he's so good at it that he was recently named the best in Canada. What are the tricks of his trade? We wanted to find out. Photographer David James recently moved into this gallery in Waterloo. On display, you'll find the photographs that helped him win the coveted title of Canadian Portrait Photographer of the Year. His reaction to learning the news that he's the best in the country?
Wow, that was my reaction. I couldn't believe it. Something I've tried to do for a long time. To be in competition with every other province in the country is just amazing.
And this was one of the pictures selected as the best. David captured this bridal couple in a spontaneous moment.
After the wedding ceremony, as we walked out, I saw the light play on the floor. So I very quickly ran up to the top of the gallery, directed them over to create the shadows, and just asked them to just slowly dance around in that area. And I think it's, for a wedding photograph, it's different and it's got the wow factor.
The judges thought this computer-enhanced picture also had the wow factor. The mountains, water, and sailboat were all taken separately and then combined later.
Before we had digital photography, we still had retouching, which was a very active part of our industry, and airbrushing. So it's just made it a different format now, but it's the image that we're enjoying, and we're all about making images.
And this picture of a girl with shocking red hair was also part of the winning package. David says it's been a whirlwind journey to reach the top of his industry. His interest in photography started in Liverpool, England, 4 decades ago. And here's some name dropping. He lived right next door to Pete Best, original drummer with the Beatles, and kept company with the rest of the band.
I used to go to art college with John Lennon and Paul McCartney in the early days. That kind of tells you how old I am.
But David says photography was only a hobby back then.
When I first started work, I started work at the Stock Exchange, and that's where I met my wife, Jackie, and it turned out that her father had a photography business.
Because of ailing health, his father-in-law turned the business over to him, and suddenly David found himself as a high-volume, quick-turnover photographer, sometimes visiting up to 25 clients in a day, taking their pictures.
That training from years ago has helped me to a point that if I'm in a situation where I'm backed into a corner and I'm not sure what to do, I can invariably fight my way out of it.
In the early 80s, David decided to take a big gamble. Admiring the work of some Canadian photographers, he moved his family to Waterloo, Ontario to learn more. It was then that he moved away from the high-volume approach.
Oh, I shifted gears as soon as I got into Canada because I had a dream, I had a goal. And that goal was to have a small studio producing the finest quality photography that I could produce.
And the portraits that he's been taking lately look almost like paintings. In fact, he's using a new computer technique to give a painted quality. These two boys are brothers. Their parents wanted to capture their image on a beach.
It's a shot that I had preconceived in my mind. And you talk about dedication to the craft. It was 3 hours drive to Sauble Beach, half an hour on the beach, and 3 hours back.
After photoshopping the image, retouching and color balancing, David uses a Painter program.
Painter gives you all the tools that an artist has, and then you slowly start to paint over the original image.
David says he approaches his portraits as an artist might. He's not just hired to take some pictures. He refers to it as being commissioned for a portrait, as he did for this family in Waterloo. This casual setting is in their backyard.
What I like to do with a family portrait, I go out with a preconceived idea, like an artist transfers what he sees to his canvas. I go out with an idea too of what I want to create for them. And then very often I will experiment, I'll play, I'll practice.
It's not hard to see why David's in such high demand as a photographer. In every portrait, there's a perfect balance of good composition, perfect lighting, and natural expressions. Known for his wedding shots, while some photographers are turning to a photojournalism style, capturing people in action, David still prefers to pose his subjects.
You need expression, you need control of lighting. You need to keep an eye on all those things and make sure that they're falling into place, not just taking photographs randomly.
On lighting, David says he doesn't like to add fill flash. He likes to wait for something called the sweet light, as he did with the boys on the beach.
It's a time of day that the light is just beautiful. And unfortunately, there's only 2 occasions in the day where this happens. One is very early in the morning, half an hour after sunrise, and the other is very late afternoon, early evening. So we can only offer that service to the discerning client twice a day maximum.
And then there's the trick of dealing with people who don't want to have their pictures taken, like kids and teenagers.
They don't want to be there. They don't want to have their photograph taken. So I let them look through the camera. I let them help me with lighting. I'll give them the exposure meter. I'll show them how to use the exposure meter. I get them involved in what's happening.
David has other tricks he uses to capture people in a perfect moment, like this toddler. He put a daisy on a door knocker and told her not to touch it. Of course she did, and David snapped this precious picture.
Children can be finicky, but you just need patience with children. They're like puppy dogs, you know. You've just got to take your time and be patient.
For amateurs who want to learn his most important trade technique, David has this advice. What's the biggest mistake people make when they're taking photographs?
I would say the biggest mistake that they make is they fill the frame too much. They get the subject right in tight and there's nowhere else to go, there's nowhere else to move from. They need to back off, they need to allow more space to come around the subject.
And as different techniques come and go, David says he's willing to experiment. But the one thing that remains constant for this photographer is his passion for capturing images. Now, if you're wondering what it's going to cost you to have David James take your picture, a studio sitting starts at $175 and a location shoot begins at $250. Still ahead? Is it just sadness or depression? What to do if you or someone you know needs help? That's coming up on Province Wide.